Okay, year 11, here we go. By the end of the week, you should be bulletproof for the exam on Friday. So, practice paper 1, there's only a finite number of questions you can be asked on Friday. So, this should cover half of them and all the answers. So, Aaron Furniture Limited is a company owned by members of the Aaron family. If you get asked what a limited company is and what is a shareholder, then that's probably more than 2 marks, but in this case you get 2 marks for that. 1 mark for explaining that a limited company is one that issues shares in ownership, and 1 mark for saying that the shares are the shareholders are the owners of the company, in this case Aaron Furniture. You could also say that a limited company is a separate legal entity, and that the shareholders are employees of the limited company. They're not liable for any of the debts of the business, as those debts of the business are picked up by the business and not the workers. Sorry about that. Question 2 is asking you to explain the term specialization and give an example of how it applies in the case of Aaron Furniture. Well, specialisation is how the workforce is actually split up. In Aaron Furniture, there'll be different people doing different jobs, and those specific jobs are what people get good at. So whether they're cutting wood and making furniture, or painting, or working in accounts, or working in marketing, or any of the other specific job roles, the directors have all got specific job roles, so they've all specialised, and the workers in each department, those functional areas, are all specialised as well. Examples from Aaron Furniture are, and I could stick with the family members that we've just talked about. The marketing director obviously heads up the position in the business for the future. The production director is responsible for getting the orders out to meet demand, and the finance director is worrying about the cash flow, profitability of the business. Question 1A part 3. Identify and explain 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of job specialisation. Well, it's quite a straightforward one, that really. You get 1 mark, as it says there, for correctly identifying an advantage and disadvantage of each. In fact, 4 marks in total, and then more marks for disadvantages. So advantages quite clearly are, if you keep doing the same job over and over and over again on a production line, you're going to get quicker at it due to the experience and the ability to repeat tasks quickly, knowing the shortcuts and knowing the technique and the procedures you're going to use. Increased production is an output of producing goods more quickly. Workers tend to be more motivated and satisfied if they know what they're doing and can do what they're doing very well and happily without having too much stress on in terms of changes impacting on them. And hopefully, if they're good at what they're doing and they can do it well and quickly, they'll also do it to a high quality, so everybody will be happy with the output. Disadvantages, obviously it takes time and money to train people to do these jobs, to be specialists, so you'll be trained by a specialist who will be taken off the job to train somebody to do that task. You could argue that workers get very bored on the production line doing the same job. As they get bored, they get demotivated, so you might train people to do 2, 3 or 4 different jobs and rotate them over the course of a week, a month, a year. Quality, it can be affected if workers become demotivated, and as people get more skills and more specialisation, clearly you've got to pay them more money. So that's 4 advantages, 4 disadvantages that you've identified there for the 8 marks. Okay, question 1B1. Identify and explain the method of production that Aaron Furniture Limited currently use in the Bowden factory. Well, that's quite clearly job production, so 1 mark for job production. And if you explain, it says identify and explain the method. So 1 mark for identifying its job production, so they're making a product to order, and then 1 mark to say what job production is. So individually made products to order the customer's specific requirements. So that gets you the 2 marks. This is a different type of question. It's actually saying now in line 50 that it says that production manager is proposing changes to production. And it's asking you to identify and explain an alternative suitable method of production for Aaron Furniture. So you quickly got to get to line 50. You should by now know what line 50 is all about if you've committed it to memory. But that line 50 is all about what the production director said in his report. So he's suggesting quite clearly that the company goes from job to batch, so they can make more items at the same time. And of course it says identify and explain, so you've then got to get on to get the other mark to actually say what batch production is. And like there, you don't have to waste a lot of time writing, just say it's where standard products are produced in batches of 2, 3 or 4 at a time. Question 1b, we're going for the big 9 marker now. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages for Aaron Furniture Limited of the method of production described above. So like any 9-mark question, it's not asking you to make a decision. In this case, it's just asking you to talk about advantages and disadvantages. So depending on what level your response is, obviously for the 9 marks, you need to talk impact, evaluation on the business. So when we talk impact, we're talking about how it impacts on sales, how it impacts on cost reduction, how it impacts on profitability, and how it impacts on staff motivation. So they're the big main impactors. So we're looking at here advantages: reduce costs. It's going to impact on profit positively. It's going to keep stocks or finished products for resale. That's going to impact on cost negatively, i.e. reducing the profit. Some disadvantage is here: quality may be suffer compared to job production. If they're making more at a time, that quality might drop off a little bit. Well, probably would drop off a bit. And your jobs aren't going to be as specialised as before, as you're doing more mass-produced stuff, more machinery being involved. But it takes a set of time to switch to different production items. So quite getting a bit harder now to get the marks. Question 1C1. Discuss the changes to the product range that the production director has suggested and what these changes would mean for the business. So he is talking about standardising to 2 product sizes in each item. So instead of doing lots of different sizes in each product, he's saying, right, we're going to stick to the product range, but instead of giving people so much choice, we're going to go for a maximum of 2 sizes for each product. And it quite clearly says that in the case study. That way they can move from one batch of one size to another batch of another size quite quickly, but they'd be no longer capable of making stuff to order for customers of any size. But that's realistically, how many sizes do you need for a bedside table? You can have a tall one and a short one. You're not going to have a wide one and a narrow one. So the choice is really not that particularly important, I don't think. But also switching to batch production will reduce the cost of production, increase productivity and profitability. So quite easy to get those 5 marks on that question there. Question 1C2. Discuss the impact of the new method of production on the employees at Aaron Furniture Limited. So if it's talking about the employees, it's not necessarily talking about the profit or the quality or the cost. It's talking about the workers. So the suggested answer here is, as Aaron Furniture use specialization, so people get good at one part of the process, and always do the same job day in, day out, it's likely that currently they're highly skilled at making furniture. If they switch to batch production, it suggests that the workers are going to be less specialised at tasks on the production line, and they might be doing more boring jobs, working with machines, and doing less exciting work. So that means they could get less excited about the job and obviously demotivated as a result of that. If staff feels their skills are not being used to the full. So easy way to get 5 marks on that question. Question 2A, part 1. Aaron Furniture Limited is looking for making a number of changes to the business. Identify 3 reasons that the business may need to access additional finance. So that's getting you now thinking about what does this business need money for. So it's only asking you to list, in effect, 3 different things. So 1 mark for each item listed or identified. Clearly it's looking at a biomass burner to reduce its cost of materials and using a low interest loan to pay for that. Clearly it's looking at a new factory so it can produce more stuff. Clearly it's looking at setting up export activities to other countries, and it's also looking at changing production methods. So there's quite a lot of choice there to pick for that question. Question 2A, part 2. Sneaky little 2-mark question there. What is meant by working capital? So when you see that comment, working capital, it's the cash. Capital is cash, or the money the business needs on a day-to-day business to work, to carry on, to produce stuff. And if you want to get sophisticated and chuck an equation in there, it's the total of the current assets, the stuff, the assets that the business has access to on a up to 12 months short term, minus the current liabilities, the debts the business owes and needs to pay in the short term, i.e. up to a year. So it's the cash available if and when all debts are paid, short term debts are paid, what's left to keep everything ticking over. Okay, going at a bit of a pace here. Question 2A, part 3. Explain 2 ways in which Aaron Furniture Limited could improve its working capital. So that's the cash in circulation to keep the business going. So it's asking for, it's giving you a mark here for identifying and 1 for explaining. A bit mean on marks on this one. But obviously if it's holding less stock costs money. If it's holding less stock, it's got less money tied up in stock, so that cash can be used for other things. It could be managing its trade creditors or people it owes money to, suppliers, better, so it could actually negotiate longer credit periods or paying them slowly or slower. It could be looking at better management of the trade debtors, so when people place orders it could be asking them to pay cash on delivery, so trade debtors are customers that are buying stuff off them. It could be replacing overdrafts with loans, so overdrafts are quite expensive whereas loans would be cheaper in the long term. It could be about increasing profits, which means more cash in the bank. So you increase profit by increasing selling prices, selling more stuff, reducing outgoings or costs and payments. Or it could be a case of selling assets that are no longer required to provide cash or to liquidate the cash out of the business. So lots of opportunities to pick from there. I've listed off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only asking you for 4. So have a little remember about those. Question 2B, part 1. Identify 2 sources of capital funding that Aaron Furniture Limited may be able to access for the business. So capital funding is long-term funding for capital expenditure. So it's only asking you to identify 2, so literally you can list them. So long-term funding would be a long-term loan. So we're looking at 10 years plus. Share capital, getting money from shareholders, releasing more shares to get capital from them, would be spent on capital expenditure, equipment, plant, houses, buildings, cars. Selling of assets would release big amounts of cash to invest on other expenses, purchases. A mortgage is a long-term loan for buying the new property, the new factory. Retained profit is profit from previous years that's been stacking up. I don't think there's a lot of that at the moment because of the fact they're in debt. And leasing a property, obviously to lease out land or to lease out part of the factory they're not using would generate capital funding for other projects. Okay, so we're on page 5 of 7. We've got another big question here. Discuss the suitability, advantages and disadvantages of the 2 chosen sources of funding in relation to Aaron Furniture Limited business plan. So, the business plan is actually involving